Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're going to take a look at how to use and manipulate live tiles within Windows Phone 7 Mango. A live tile is that tile that can be pinned to the start screen that can provide some data such as an image, a count, and a text to the user. But in Mango they've done two things. They've added the ability for the tile to flip so you can add content on the back side of it, as well as added the ability to create a secondary tile for your application. And this is a tile that will allow you to deep link into a given page with context into your app so that the user can click the tile and go straight to that page versus go straight to the main screen of your page. In this episode we're going to learn how to create the application tile programmatically. We're going to take a look at how you can create the secondary tile as well as how you can modify and delete existing secondary tiles. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we get started, let's go ahead and take a look at what I've already done to our project to enable us to get up and running quickly. The first thing I've done is I've added Calibre and Micro to our project, and I've done this in order to provide some simplification of our scaffolding for things like our view model location, our binding between our view model and our view, as well as our extraction of our query string parameters, which will be needed when we create our live tile. I've already gone ahead and I've created two view models, one to represent each page we're going to be using, one for the main page, one for the details page. And I've already created our main page and our details page. And then finally, I've already gone ahead and I've created our secondary tile, and this will be our tile that we'll use as their image on our secondary tile that we create. So if we look at our main page, you'll see that there's four buttons on it. One to create an application tile, one to create a tile, and then two to edit and delete a tile. These bottom three will work with secondary tiles, whereas the top one will work with our application tile. Now, because we're using Calibre and I don't need to wire up any event handlers or commands from the view to my view model, it's all done based on a convention. So I've got methods here in my view model that match the name of my buttons in my view. Calibre is going to be smart enough to wire that all together. So the first thing I want to do is I want to create our application tile. Now, what is an application tile? An application tile is basically the icon that you can use to when you pin an app from the app list to the start window. One thing to notice is when I create an application tile via code, it will not automatically pin it to the start screen for me. The user has to do that themselves. But what it will do is it'll set it up so that when they do pin it, it has all the metadata associated correctly and will display the way you want it. So how do we create the app tile? First thing we're going to need to do is reach in and start using a new namespace within Windows Phone 7, so the Microsoft.phone.shell namespace. What we're going to do is it's going to be called shell tile. We're going to grab the active tiles and grab the first one. Now I can do this because there's always going to be a first in this list. I don't need to worry about first or default. Per the framework, there's always one. So we're going to call this shell tile, and then we will do a check to see if it's null, just to be good developers here. So if it's not equal to null, then we're going to do some stuff. What are we going to do? Well, I'm going to go ahead and create a standard tile. So I'm going to do new standard tile data. Then we're going to use some object initializers here. First thing I want to do is I want to create my tile, my title. This is going to be the text at the bottom of our tile. And we don't have a lot of room here, so what I'm going to just do is call this a live tile demo. I'm then going to change or create our background image. Background image can be any image you want. I'm going to go ahead and set up to be our secondary tile just so we can show that we can create a tile here. It can be anything you want. It needs to be 173 by 173, and the property of the tile needs to be marked as content, not resource. So let's do new URI. Now we're going to go ahead and do the count. Do we want a count? Basically, count is useful for things like email and things like that. We don't want a count here, so I'm going to leave it at null. And I'm going to explicitly set that to null. And then lastly, I'm going to create a back title and the back content. This is new to Mango. So my back title, I'll just put as back title. And back content, this is going to be a little bit of text that you can write that'll notify the user of something important. And I'm done. I've created my standard tile data, but I now need to append that or attach that to my shell tile. So let's go and do shell tile.update. And we want to make this standard tile, and that's it. That's all I need to do to create our app title, our app tile for our application. Pretty straightforward. Now what do I need to do to create a secondary title and then edit and delete them? And we'll do all this and then we'll take a look at how they run. To create a secondary tile, we do something very similar to the application tile, but it's just a slight little tweak. And what we need to do is we need to reach into our shell tile.active tiles again. But this time I want to actually query for something based on the URI of the tile, because secondary tiles have a special feature which allows you to not only pin a second tile to your start screen, but also make it so that it's deep linkable. Make it so that when I click on the secondary tile, it actually navigates into my application, and it's going to do this via a query string. So let's go ahead and do X. And we want to reach into the navigation URI, and we want to change that to a string just so we can work with it, and make sure it contains something. And let's go ahead and do detail ID equals 123. This value here is completely arbitrary. It's up to you. This detail ID needs to be a constant. It's something you always want to look at. And of course 123 is going to have some context based on the tile you're trying to create. So this is not something you're probably going to hard code in a real app. We're going to grab that tile. Now here we can have a null. So here we better check to see if found tile is equal to null. Because if it is null, then we want to create a new one. If it's not null, we don't. To save a few keystrokes, I am going to go ahead and copy and paste some code in here. You'll notice that creating the tile here is the exact same as creating the tiles below. So I'm going to go ahead and create my background image. We're going to use that same image from before. I'm going to create a title, we'll call the secondary tile so that we know that it's a secondary versus a primary. I'm going to remove the count again. I'm going to put some titles, information, some content on the background, and I'm going to explicitly leave off the background image because I want to show you that you can have an image on the front and no image on the back if you want. And then finally, what is new here is this shell tile.create. This is how we actually create a new tile. Now, one thing to understand about creation of a secondary tile is it will navigate you away from your app immediately to display that tile. And when you create this, you do need to provide a URI. So here we're going to give it our URI into our details page. If this is wrong, your app will blow up, but it will not give you any exceptions because of the way that the debugger detaches from the emulator. That's it. We can now create our secondary tile. Now that we've created our secondary tile and created our app tile, we probably want to be able to edit them. So let's go ahead and edit our secondary tile. And I'm going to paste some code in here, and we'll take a look at it. You'll notice that this code is the exact same as the code as above where we created our tile. This time, instead of checking to see if it is null, we want to find out if it's not null. If it's not null, we want to update it. Now here you'll notice I'm just updating the title, or just setting the title, excuse me. But let's go ahead and set the count too, just to show that we can do something. Now the one thing I'm not happy with, but is what it is the fact that even though I can retrieve the existing tile, I don't have the ability to get the existing metadata off the tile. So I have to recreate all the content every time. Once I've recreated that content, I just go onto my found tile and I say update and I give it my new tile data, and it will magically appear and be updated on my home screen. Now that we can edit it, we probably want to be able to delete it. So how do we do that? Well, I'm going to copy and paste the code to find my tile from above. I'm going to say if found title not equal to null, because again, if we haven't created one, there's no point in deleting it. If we have found one, well, delete it. And then we do find tile.delete. That's it. This will programmatically delete our live tile. Now when you delete the live tile, it will not navigate away from the app in the same manner as it did when it created the app. So we've now created our 4 methods which will allow us to create an app tile, create a secondary tile, and then edit and delete the secondary tile. I think it's about time we launch this bad boy and see it work. So our app is loading. Here's our demo app. I'm going to go ahead and do two things. One, I'm going to go ahead and create the application tile. I know it didn't navigate away and didn't show us anything, but we'll take a look at that here in a second. I'm also going to create my secondary tile. And when I do that, you'll see it immediately navigates away. Now, this is kind of annoying. Your user can now hit the back button if they want to get back to where they were, but it will leave you away. And it actually showed you real quickly that here's the back of the tile. So here's the back data we created, no image. Here's the front data we created with the image. Now if I pin my tile to the start screen, you'll see it creates the tile the way I set it up, where I can see the image and I can see the text. And if I had given a number, I'd have a number up here. And here your main app tile will flip and you can see the background there. Let's go into our app. Let's edit our existing tile. Now let's go back to our home screen. And you'll see that I now have a new tile text and it's giving me a number of 99. That tells me I have updated it. Now, like I said a minute ago, secondary tiles allow for deep linking. So if I go ahead and click this now, I will navigate into my app, go to my details page, and you'll see that my details ID of 123 is pulled out of the query string. This tells me that I was able to deep link and go into my app. That's pretty cool. Now finally, we haven't tested the delete, so let's test that real quick. Let's go ahead and delete this. Now if I leave my app, there should be no tile on the home screen. And sure enough, there's no tile. So there you have it. In about, 4 methods and probably a total of 30 lines of code, you can add an app tile, create a secondary tile, and edit and delete a secondary tile. Now keep in mind, you can create as many secondary tiles as you want. Each one can be unique. I wouldn't create a lot because you're going to annoy your user if you fill up their entire start screen with secondary tiles. But as you've seen, you can do it and you can do it very easily. So I hope this helps, and until next time.